makes the illness worse and prevents you from getting your healing. But if you free yourself. Hello team, welcome to another video of Doing, Being, Becoming, where we aim to inform, impact, influence and inspire. The goal of this channel is to bring you to awareness about what occupational therapy is and the services that we provide, but above that, it is to bring you to a greater awareness of yourself and especially your mental health. So if this is your first time on this channel, welcome. Please enjoy the rest of our videos. If it is not your first time on this channel, I do hope that by now you have subscribed and shared. So something that I really want to focus on in this video is the concept that it is not your fault. A lot of us who focus or suffer from mental illness, we don't talk about it, and people experience a lot of guilt, shame and embarrassment to have or to be living with mental illness. But I really want to tell you that it is not your fault. And I'm going to be doing this by focusing on the 4 general causes of mental illness. The first cause is biological. What this is that it could be running in your family. You could have a family history of depression, of anxiety that could predispose you to you having or suffering from the illness as well. You could be personality traits that you are born with that predispose you to having a diagnosable mental illness. The second one is biochemistry. It could be an imbalance in your hormones or as a side effect of medication that you are taking. The third cause or possible cause of mental illness is trauma. Now, everybody who has experienced trauma knows in our rational minds that nobody could have called for it. Nobody asks for traumatic events to happen to us. And I mentioned this in one of my previous videos titled What is PTSD? So we could experience mental illness as a result of a traumatic occurrence and experience that happens to us. Trauma can be anything from the death of a loved one, abuse to ourselves, or experiencing a natural disaster, for example, or having a car accident. After being exposed to that traumatic event, you could then suffer from depression or anxiety or PTSD. The fourth and final general cause that I'm going to focus on in this video is environmental. It has been proven that poverty can be one of the predispositions or the precipitators of someone experiencing schizophrenia. Additional things that can happen in your environment that could also lead you to having a mental illness are not too far from what I mentioned in the third point, which is trauma. If you grow up in an abusive environment or in an environment where you're exposed to trauma, whether that be war or parents fighting, that could also lead to having a mental illness. Obviously, this is just on the surface, but it is just to drive across the point that just as you may have flu and that isn't necessarily your fault, that you can have mental illness and you cannot attribute that to anything that you have done. It may seem like a silly example, but I do believe that drives the point across that mental illness or having a mental illness or not having a mental illness is not symbolic or significant of how strong you are. You can be strong and suffer from mental illness, and you cannot be strong and not suffer from mental illness. So we can't equate our strength to us having or not having mental illness. So although it is important for us to not carry guilt, shame and embarrassment when living with mental illness, it is important to be responsible in managing and taking care of yourself during that process of living through a mental illness. In the previous video, I shared the idea that toxic thoughts lead us into a state of dis-ease. So if you continue to harbor thoughts and feelings of resentment for past traumas that have happened to you, or guilt, shame and embarrassment for living with mental illness, then you block your journey of healing and taking hold of optimum mental health. In order for you to optimize your mental health, it is then very imperative for you to understand and believe that it is not your fault, and you cannot hold yourself responsible for things that were out of your control. So I really do hope that helps and gives you some sort of relief. Until the next video, let's continue to do the best to do, be, and become.